This particular cover that The Dark Side of the Moon is producing for this song, well, actually, let me rephrase that. This inspirational song sits in a somewhat isolated space from the other covers. And I'm not trying to lessen the reverence of the other pieces or their prominence within their general fan bases. Because all the other pieces, in some way, are connected to, again, I'm operating from the perspective of 7 covers thus far, 6, that we've entertained together. All of those pieces herald from the visual entertainment space and part of inspirational works of the same name, but again, they're paying homage to in large respect, and they're very respectful, again, of the original pieces and part of what The Dark Side of the Moon has produced. If I Had a Heart is similar, in that, as I understand it, has a general consideration among the TV space. But the song's reach is quite broad, given that, again, I'm just looking at I'm skimming through some preliminary information on it, and I have entertained the tune before, so that when we go into engaging with The Dark Side of the Moon's version of a song, I am informed on the original tune. I'll get to my discussion on that in a minute, but If I Had a Heart, if you're not familiar, is connected to, at least again on the information I found, a large number of media projects, and part of, I believe, but I'm not exactly sure what the involvement was for those original works. Could have been for credits, could have been maybe a soundtrack overlap. My assumption is, given the other works have entertained on the fantasy tune, and the pop culture visual entertainment angle with the fantasy feel, or the general mainstay on part of what The Dark Side of the Moon has offered in connection to their narratives, as well as their original pieces. That's a general feeling on the album of Metamorphosis. I'm assuming the connective tissue here is Vikings, which is a show that I keep eyeing. I haven't watched it yet. I should. I don't know. I haven't watched The Northman yet either, and I gotta look at that movie. Because I know it's kind of similar, at least in some... I don't know about the TV show, but at least on Presence. That movie looked really good. I know the Viking show, at least the original one, I've heard the spin-off... I kind of heard mixed opinion on the second one. Maybe it's fine, but the original show, I remember got a lot of reverence. It still does. Haven't looked at it yet. I totally should. But I have entertained the tune If I Had a Heart, and that's a very interesting piece to use as an opening credits number, which is, again, that's a connective thread with Vikings. As a piece, I'm really curious to hear how The Dark Side of the Moon adapts this. Again, maybe some of you are approaching that on a first-name basis. Dark Side of the Moon, a supergroup combination of different members of Ad Infinitum, Feuerschwangs, and Amaranth. All favorites of mine, and other groups you should humor if you haven't yet. And they are the fantasy project of sorts, largely in the cover territory, but they have produced some original works. They bring in a mainstay of metal with such atmosphere and mixture of tone for sure, some harp involvement, so unique, and competency on the percussion work, the guitar work. Again, Morton and Hans are very talented, their respective groups that they're attributed to, and Melissa Bonney's exquisite vocals, as always. She's the big favorite of mine, many of you know, especially in the European sphere, which I can't get enough of, and I know you won't either if you haven't gone down that road. You will with me today. Maybe Dark Side of the Moon will be a first entry, as well as their adaptation with If I Had a Heart. Maybe you haven't heard this tune before either, and you're operating again from a general basis. I've again consulted the tune in advance to gauge it so I can be informed on consideration of evaluating it as a cover and the detractive points, perhaps, or the points of similarity. We'll see. Again, we're going to entertain that together for the first time. But it's an original piece, as I understand, inspired by Fever Ray, a Swedish electronic, or at least the song this comes from, or the collection of work, is it's an electronic release, or electronic music, with definitely a pop flair, much slower and more ominous than I've entertained. But it's quite charming. Unnerving, for sure. I love that tone to it, though. And the background organ, great application. Very different, mixed with, again, a nice, easy-paced synth foundation. Quite interesting. I'm really curious, though, again, now that I've heard that, to hear where the Dark Side of the Moon goes with it. I'm assuming something a bit harder. I don't know. Maybe it could mimic that tone. I mean, it could play around a bit like Jenny of Oldstones, because that one also took a softer song and mixed tunes of both the softer section and then a more agitated side beautifully. Let's see. Again, we're going to humor it together for the first time. As I deliver on my promise on part of all of you Dark Side of the Moon fans who came to the group before I did, I'm still a little younger in my days, though I'm sure I'm equal in reverence at this point because I can't get enough of them, quite frankly. I promised you we'd be building out a remainder of the album here. I didn't at first, but I'm like, it was my intention in part two. I kept thinking about it. I'm like, how can I not? It's been wonderful thus far to entertain 10 works of you, but remaining, at least considering what I've covered today and what I'm about to cover, 3 singles in total that'll finish off our journey of the album until more releases, hopefully in the future. I can't wait for more. As far as I'm concerned here, doors always open. Let's take a look at this together, and maybe, on part, if I can offer this, if you're not someone that's entertained Dark Side of the Moon before, this will be your first point of exposure. I do hope there's some of you that approach from that dynamic of first introductions to music on part of competent releases from a multitude of artists. I cover a great scale and part of not just my general love for it as an art form, and it's really a favorite of mine in that respect, but if you want to witness good art, but you don't know necessarily where to look in the music territory, I do want to provide paths for you of access. And the Dark Side of the Moon, I've had the honor of being introduced to them, a part of their associated talents and the recommendations of many of you. And I hope that that same passion and love that I'm about to experience, I'm sure, with their retelling of If I Had a Heart, will be mimicked by you. And in a way that you'll find it compelling to go down, or the prospect of going down the Dark Side of the Moon pipeline. And considering their past library. Again, all the singles I've humored thus far on the channel, the entire collection, considering this video, 10 in total, 11 to be, on part of Metamorphosis. But I think you're going to have a good time. Let's enjoy this together for the first engagement. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the song, and we can get, again, that simultaneous introduction and fascination of it, again, I'm sure. And if you're not familiar with my coverage, and that's a first introduction to you, I provide the lyrics on part to suit listener taste, so if you want to read along with the original message of the piece, those will be provided to you directly in the video, and you'll see those pop up as soon as the song commences. Hang on, let me get the right window up here, because apparently I didn't in advance for some reason. Now. Okay, I like the pacing there. Nice vibration. It mimics the tone, accelerates the intensity a bit, but we still got that basis. It's very much in standing to the original work. There's more of a push here, though, for sure. They've taken the organ and made it more of a choir background. Oh, Melissa hit it with this one, that range. Wow, I love the coverage of this song. Oh, it's sinking. It's just beautiful. It really is. It's so cool, too, to see the vocal presence. At least even again going in, I'm very familiar with Melissa Bonney, but I can't recall if I've heard it go that low before on part of her vocal tonality. This is more mainstay. Great symphonic involvement there. I love the effect of this song. This is a very strong cover. Again, it's so connected to the original piece. And yet it sits in both spaces. Stark deviation. But it's such a good homage. So satisfying. It's a quick song too, at least it feels that way. Good layering, we got that growl featured again. And that's been an established effect on the album, that it's more of a backdrop element with some spin-off from that, but I love that involvement. I'm assuming closure here. Let's see. Because this is a satisfying tone to take the song out on. Yeah, I'm only got about like 20 seconds left, so I'm assuming this will be our closure. It feels so European. Oh man, I love how they captured the fantasy feel in that song. And again, it's so accurate to the original piece on tone. They take the organ basis. It's quite even towards the end. Again, I'm considering the growth here on the introduction and the opening measures. At least in my opinion, it sounds like they trade the organ for a choir effect. So they keep the fantasy side, or the symphonic edge, as a part of the original piece, in a way that it feels birthed out of the original song, because it is so close on feeling. The synths, I think, are more of a background lingering riff from what I heard. I could have that wrong. It's just such a satisfying mimicry that in some part as well expands my considerations, not just on the use of tools on part of the different members that are combining this supergroup project. I don't think in my considerations of what I've consulted, and it's been a lot on part of Melissa Bonney and what she's been involved with, whether it be Ad Infinitum or, of course, The Dark Side of the Moon, and some of her other collaborative work through Feuerschwangs, and some of this is ongoing, War Kings, Mortemia, Hero, there's been Camelot to be, I'll get there, I can't wait to go down. That's a separate point, but man, I'm covering Camelot again pretty soon. I have to do their new album. I haven't done it yet, but I can't wait to hear that piece. Anyway, I am very familiar with Melissa Bonney's depth on part of where her voice can go. I don't think I've heard her go that low before, though. And I'm thinking of Ad Infinitum. I think it's a low. Yeah, it'd be like a lower E. Several octaves down, but that just sounded so comfortable for her. It's so new to me. Really worked there with that song. Again, I think because she's playing both roles here exquisitely. And the freshness of it and what The Dark Side of the Moon incorporates, you almost don't notice it. Well, I mean, okay, that's not fair to say. You do. Those points of deviation. But it is just so faithful. In readapting that piece, it doesn't lose If I Had a Heart's original essence. It just has it literally undergo a metamorphosis. To pull, I guess, a understandable term of application. That's a good philosophy of the album, come to think of it. Maybe apart from like the original pieces, because those are just so fresh. But it really is like each piece that they're covering undergoes a positive metamorphosis that retains the original song. I want to be very fair here, because I've not felt in any way that the covers strip apart the original inspirational pieces, or that they're in some way inferior. I think they're great. They're just so satisfying listens and original pieces in their own right. But when you consider that original inspiration, which you have to, I think, to get the best take of consideration and regard, and to do the piece, the full honor it deserves, quite frankly. The Dark Side of the Moon is just so adept at providing as much reverence as they can directly into the fabric of their pieces. I love that there's not that much of a separation at all. But then there is. And yet it feels like there isn't. It's deceitfully charming. You know, as I said, I wondered which direction they were going to take this, because again, the bass song is so soft. It's nice. I mean, again, it's very foreboding. Has an incredibly troubling mood. Great key choice. The synth use and the organ background. With the vocal lendings on part of, again, Fever Ray, I was very impressed by it. And then I consider what The Dark Side of the Moon did, and it just almost feels like it's the same. It's so weird. It's again, it's in that weird space of it's the same, but it's not. It just feels like that. These last pieces are just really interesting to entertain. Again, I've been a fan of both territories of Dark Side of the Moon. I'd love to see more done on both sides in the future. I truly hope there's going to be an evolution of this group. I know many of you would probably agree with me on that. Fresh songs are exquisite. And these covers, though, they're so unique. Especially when I think back again on pieces that we've originally entertained together, I have even more reverence on every number that I've heard. This one's certainly one of the most adept, I think, at it again, sitting in between that tone of homage and freshness. They really did, I think, Fever Ray justice on that one. That's an impressive cover. And I'd be curious to hear what you think down below on it. And your angle of approach as well. Longtime Dark Side of the Moon fans, maybe some of you are approaching their first introduction. I'd love to hear about if that's the case down below. And for those of you who are familiarized with Fever Ray, maybe you've been an avid listener to the original If I Had a Heart longer than me. Maybe you heard it on the Viking show, or in one of the other many cinematic contributions, at least what's regarded on the page I'm looking at, for where this piece has found its placement, because there's a whole number of projects. But Vikings, I think, again, is probably the reason that Dark Side of the Moon chose it. It makes the most sense realistically, based on the other cinematic works and their fantasy nature, why Vikings would apply. I'd love to hear about maybe your considerations down below and where you feel this project sits. Do you think it sits in equal reference with you? Because it does for me. And I know it just entertained one listen of If I Had a Heart, but again, to pair it in association to The Dark Side of the Moon, it just amazes me. On music, on vocal balance, on different element integration, I'm so impressed by it, in how they intentionally mirrored the tone so directly and yet still kept it fresh. This piece achieves a lot here. It's one of my favorite covers, again, on the album. In characterization. I'm very impressed with it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.